Analysing a role-playing game's ability to ease stress and anxiety during a global pandemic. Final year conference submission by Jack Taylor. The pandemic I'm referencing is, of course, COVID-19. The UK was put into government-enforced lockdown on the 23rd of March 2020. Families told to stay indoors, not socialise with any other household, and only leave for essential trips or 1 hour of exercise. A lot of students that were studying elsewhere from their hometown were advised to move back home during lockdown as the government were unsure how long it would last. The change of situation and wave of uncertainty took its toll on everybody, especially in terms of their mental health. Within this presentation, I'll be exploring role-playing games and their ability to ease stress and anxiety during a global pandemic. An RPG, or role-playing game, is a video game in which players control a character or team who undertake quests and use strategy and problem solving to advance within the game. These games often share settings and rules with tabletop RPGs, but emphasize character advancement more than collaborative storytelling. How does playing games help with managing the stress and anxiety that comes with COVID-19? These games can act as a form of escapism for sufferers of stress and anxiety disorders, especially during these unprecedented times. Being able to press pause on real-life world and immerse yourself in the fictional setting of said game. Tasks and problems that emerge within role-playing games are usually a lot more simple and easy to overcome than problems that may emerge within reality. When asked, 6 out of 10 of my peers who do play these sort of games stated that making decisions for a character in a role-playing game has helped them calm down and allowed them to return to their real-life problems and decision-making with a rational train of thought. Some of the most popular games mentioned were Zelda, Pokemon, as well as Animal Crossing, which will act as the main focus of my presentation. Animal Crossing, a vehicle for safe social interactions and keeping to a schedule whilst stuck in lockdown. March 20th, 2020 brought us the newest instalment of the role-playing game Animal Crossing, in the form of New Horizons, releasing just before the government-enforced lockdown. Here are 2 quotes from the media talking about Animal Crossing's release. When Animal Crossing New Horizons released in March, it was to cacophonous praise. In a world stricken by pandemic-fueled quarantine orders, the life sim offers a much-needed escape to an idyllic island life, free of viruses and recession and fear. Here, in this small digital world, you can mingle with your neighbours without wondering if you're going to infect each other, or take a shopping trip to Able Sisters or Nook's Cranny, which have mercifully remained open during this chaos. With the world in the grip of a pandemic, the wildly popular game is a conveniently timed piece of whimsy, particularly for millennials. During quarantine, most people who aren't considered key workers have been either left without a job or furloughed and told to stay home and stay inside. For those of us with full-time jobs or education, this adjustment was very taxing on our mental health. Our regular routine that some of us rely on for mental stability had been taken away from us. Animal Crossing produces daily tasks for the player, such as fishing, buying turnips, selling turnips, building and redesigning the island, allowing players to create a new schedule, providing something to distract from all of the uncertainty and fear that has come with COVID-19. Animal Crossing, socialising while staying safe. Friends all across the world have been able to stay in contact and socialise while still adhering to the government's lockdown measures, due to Animal Crossing's feature which allows you to visit each other's islands over the internet. This feature can be utilised in many different ways, depending on what players choose to do. For example, as you can see in the picture, last month, when third-year students were told that their graduation ceremonies had been cancelled, my friend Mary organised a graduation ceremony on her island and invited a group of us third-year students to come and partake. The ceremony was only for entertainment purposes, but it did help in lifting our spirits after the bad news and allowed us all to have a much needed reunion after being torn apart by the pandemic. Tackling loneliness during isolation. The number of online game players continues to grow, as well as the number of hours spent in online world. Animal Crossing has become one of the most popular online role-playing games. It's set in a picturesque fictional world in which players achieve goals through interaction and mutual communication. YouTuber and gamer Cora Mora conducted a study which verified differences in experiencing loneliness, UCLA loneliness scale, and social anxiety, social phobia inventory, in Animal Crossing players in online and real world, offline. Since these two worlds and the functioning of the players in them differ, in the sample consisting of 161 players, it was found that players experience a significantly lower degree of loneliness and social anxiety in online than in real world. The lower degree of loneliness experienced was also associated with playing and interacting with friends or people who the player knows, such as you do within Animal Crossing. So the real question is, do these games actually help or just act as a distraction? So some may argue that these games are nothing more than a distraction, wasting time until you have to return to whatever is causing you this stress and anxiety. And I agree, sometimes these games do nothing more than distract us. They do nothing but allow us that escapism and that time to regather our thoughts. But sometimes that's all we need. I asked some of my peers on social media whether role-playing games were genuinely helpful in relieving stress and anxiety during these times. Here are a few of their comments. Carol had this to say. Definitely, focusing on other people's lives, real or not, makes me feel a lot calmer and helps with my own stress, especially with all of this triggering stuff in the media about coronavirus. Ellie added, high stress anxiety gal here. I find completing day-to-day tasks within Animal Crossing very helpful. I think it's the act of following and focusing on a project that allows me to escape from whatever is stressing me out. Finally, Becca said, yes, for example, I wouldn't be thinking whilst playing Animal Crossing, how would Becca respond to this? I'd be thinking of how the character would respond to this in the given aspect of society. It's almost a safer world than ours, which I feel could offer a feeling of calm to those like myself that suffer with depression and high levels of anxiety. I myself have found, whilst living at home, struggling to adjust, completing my 3 modules, as well as being a key worker and still working, I have also struggled and turned to Animal Crossing as my escapism within the pandemic. And it's really helped to calm me and keep me on track and to keep me mentally stable. I need that sort of interaction, that distraction, the tasks being set for me that I can complete that aren't out of my grasp, as things such as graduation seem to be right now. Now to mention some non-role-playing games. So some of the other video games mentioned whilst discussing this topic with my peers were Sims, Nintendogs, and Pokemon Go. Obviously, we won't be including Pokemon Go in the discussion as we cannot go anywhere, we're on lockdown. But Nintendogs, for example, some people who suffer with mental health issues such as anxiety and depression have what is known as an emotional support animal. The presence of these animals has proven to have a positive input on the owner's mental health. But sometimes, for students in accommodation especially, living with pets is not a viable option. But I believe that playing Nintendogs could possibly emulate the presence of a pet support animal and give players the responsibility and positive interactions that they're missing out on. As well as The Sims. The Sims gives you complete control and responsibility over the life and well-being of the characters that you create. A friend of mine who suffers from anxiety said on days when she couldn't even get out of bed to brush her hair, she would play through Sims and feel like being proactive in some shape or form, instead of staring at the ceiling, had a positive impact on her mental health. The verdict. From both personal experiences and with information gathered from a contrast of different peers of all age groups, I can conclude that playing video games such as Animal Crossing have been an integral part in relieving stress and anxiety during the COVID-19 global pandemic. and for fellow sufferers of these afflictions. If you haven't done already, go and order yourself a copy of Animal Crossing or Pokemon and put my statement to the test. Thank you everyone for coming to our conference and taking time out of your day to listen to my contribution. Not how I imagined we'd be doing this, but needs must. On screen now is the bibliography of sources that I used during this presentation. Thank you.